Euclid's geometry. So Euclid's understanding of geometry is what we're going to discuss in today's session. In Euclid's understanding of geometry, we need to understand some basic concepts before we understand the geometry itself. So let's try to understand how Euclid has come into different basic properties before he could apply geometry in various real-life situations. For this, let me take an example of a cube for you to understand how Euclid's geometry can be applied or has been applied through each of the developed contents. Imagine I have a cube or a die. We all know that a die has 6 faces. So I take the example of a die in which each face of the die is called a surface. So Euclid has taken each face to be a surface, and each surface is nowhere related to the other surface. That means when I take this in this region, the other surface lies entirely in other space. So according to Euclid's geometry, every surface is in its own space, the other surface being in the other space. So each of the 6 surfaces will be in each of the different regions, is how we understand Euclid's geometry. And according to Euclid's geometry, every surface with the other surface is separated by a line or a curve. In this case, this surface being separated from this surface by this line, as can be clearly seen. So the surface 1 and the surface 2 are separated by a line or a curve. So in this case, a line separates the 2 surfaces. And further, Euclid's geometry understands that all the lines meet at a point. So here, this line, and the other line all meet at a unique point. So according to Euclid's geometry, 2 surfaces, any site which is in its own space is a surface of the die, and the 2 surfaces are in their own respective spaces but not in the same space, and both the surfaces are separated by a line or by a curve, and all the curves of the lines meet at one point, is how we understand a 3-dimensional or an object like a die, which is separated by first with a surface and then with a line and a point. All the surfaces make the line and all the lines make the point, is how we understand, with each of the surface making the line and each of the lines making the point, is how Euclid has come through the introduction of geometry. So all surfaces make a line or a curve. All lines or curves make a point, is how we understand. And we also understand that it is the surface which makes the line, and it is the lines which make the point. And this is how the transaction happens: surface to line and line to point. And surface is referred with 3-dimension and this refers to 2-dimension, and this refers to unique dimension, is how we understand. So before we understand this, let's try to understand on how the dimension is understood through the solid structure. Euclid's geometry connected with a rolling die. Now let's understand Euclid's geometry through a 3-dimensional object, just like a dice. So let's take an object and understand the concept more stronger on how Euclid could understand geometry during his times. So as we have seen a dice, I assume this to be a 3-dimensional dice in which I have 6 faces: face 1, face 2, face 3, face 4, and face 5, and face 6. So in this, each of the face is called a surface according to Euclid's geometry, as I refer with the surface. Now as I see that every surface is in its own space, that means this surface cannot be in this space, or this surface cannot be in this space. Each surface is in its own space, is how we understand the surface. So every surface is separated by spaces. And also, as I see the two surfaces, I can see that this surface and this surface is joined by a line or a curve, depends on the structure. Now every surface, say for example this and this, is separated by a line. This surface with this surface is separated by a line. So therefore, the two surfaces are separated by a line. All surfaces make a line. Now let's see how the lines make the point, or how the curves make the point. As I see here, the line 1 made by these two surfaces, and the line 2 made by these two, and the line 3 made by this and this surface, all the 3 lines, line 1, line 2, and line 3, all meet at this point. So this is the point where the 3 lines meet. So this point is made, indirectly is assumed to have been made by the lines of the solid structure. Say for example, I take this point which is made by this line, and this line. Therefore, the lines in the object make the point, is how we understand. So basically, the transaction goes that a solid, or the object itself, in this case being a box, makes the surface. The box is the initial making which makes each of the 6 surfaces. The solid makes the surface, and the surfaces make the lines or the curves, and the curves or the lines make the point. So the solid structure defines the surface, surfaces define the line, the lines define the points, is how we understand the transaction series in the Euclid's understanding of geometry. Also, let's make the most important note in this case, that a solid is referred to as the 3-dimensional structure. A surface is referred to 2-dimensional structure, and a line is referred to a 1-dimensional structure. A point is referred to a 0-dimensional or no dimensional structure. The dimension of a solid is 3D, and as it goes here, it reduces by 1 unit, and as it goes here, it reduces by 1 unit, and as it goes here, it reduces by 1 unit. So the dimension of the specimen gets reduced by 1 unit as it gets reduced to a point. Solid 3-dimensional reduces to surface, which is 2, the line, which is 1, and then to the point, which is of 0 dimension or no dimension, is how we understand the concept of a solid structure to reducing to a point in Euclid's understanding of geometry.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.